All right, you guys. Two more types of quadrilaterals. Yesterday we did rectangles, rhombus, squares. These are just, they're not parallelograms. So it's just two more types. They are trapezoids and kites. Okay, trapezoid, in order for something to be a trapezoid, it only has one property. It has one set, exactly one, of parallel sides. That's the only property for trapezoids.
So could a square be considered a trapezoid?
No, because a trapezoid has to have just one, only one. Yep. So it would say, I should have wrote that, exactly one. So trapezoids, the most common one looks like this. I didn't draw a straight line. That is parallel to that. So remember, sometimes trapezoids can be up and down like this, if that's parallel to that. It's just if they've got one set of sides, Micah, that are parallel, it's a trapezoid. Now the things we're going to mostly be dealing with though are isosceles trapezoids. Oops. So an isosceles trapezoid is the most common one that you see, like the one I just drew. Everyone remember what the word isosceles means?
Two sides are the same.
Yep, two sides are the same. So if you had to guess which two sides were the same on this,
The left and the right.
it'd be these two. Okay? So on an isosceles trapezoid, these are called the legs. And the two sides that are parallel are the bases. So remember, it could go up and down. This trapezoid could be tipped sideways. Base isn't always the bottom. It could be the two sides. It's just the two sides that are parallel. Also, what's true is this, is since this is parallel to that, these two angles here, are they going to be equal, or do they add up to 180?
Add up.
They're same side interior angles, so they add up to 180. Same thing here. That's true in any trapezoid, but if it's isosceles, remember in a triangle, if these two sides are the same, what do you know about these two angles? They're the same. So the same thing here. This angle is going to equal this angle, and these two angles are going to equal each other. Okay? Those are called the base angles. Okay? So there's really not much to trapezoids. Kites, there's a couple things that you probably didn't know about in a kite. So in a kite, these two pieces have to be equal to each other, and these two have to be equal to each other, but they can't all four be the same. Because if they were all four the same, it would be called a square, or more likely, rhombus. Okay? So, you probably knew that, right?
Do the angles have to be the same?
The only two angles, this one is obviously smaller than that, but these two angles are the same. And then if you draw in the diagonals, they don't bisect each other, but this one gets bisected and they're perpendicular. So it forms four right triangles. So on like 2 or 3 of your problems today, you'll have a picture like this, and they'll give you this length and this length, and they ask for that length. So remember how to figure those out? Pythagorean theorem. Remember, if you're looking for the hypotenuse, you add them. 3 squared plus 8 squared, and then you square root it. So your answers, if they're not whole numbers, you can round to the nearest tenth. So this would round to 8.5. Okay? So in the assignment, it tells you to find all the missing sides. If this is 8.5, do you need to figure that out? No, that's also 8.5. And then just say that's 3 and 3. You just take 3 squared plus 3 squared and square root it. So that'd be 18. That'd be 4.2. So that one's also 4.2. So that's all it is today. Kites and trapezoids. Mid segment of a trapezoid. Yeah, we gotta talk about that. The mid segment of a trapezoid is just what you think it would be. If you had a trapezoid like this, where this little top piece is parallel to that, it looks like a triangle. Okay? Mid segment is just, you find the midpoint of this leg and the midpoint of this leg, and you connect them. Okay? So since you're connecting them, it's going to be parallel to these. So all 3 of these lines are parallel, which means whatever this angle is, this angle will be the same, because what kind of angles are those? Someone just said it. Corresponding. They're corresponding angles. Now, the other thing that's true is this. Let me draw a little better picture. Let's say this base is 8, and this base is 14. And if you drew in the mid segments, and they asked you to find that length, it's obviously going to be between 8 and 14, right? If you had to guess, well, 6 is not in between 8 and 14.
11.
How did you get 11?
That's halfway through.
Huh?
It's halfway through. Or can you just like add them up?
Yeah, it's the average of them. 8 and 14 is 22. Divided by 2 is 11. Okay? It's right in between the two. So, also, if you had something like this, if this was 10 and this was 6, and they had to find this, what is it?
14.
14. Real quick way to find that. How did you do it so quick?
I just did what? 10 times 2 is 10, and then, yeah.
10 times 2 is 20.
It's
10
20.
times 2 is 20. And then
There's actually a quicker way.
20
That's
is
right.
14.
You know, you had to double this. These two would have to add up to 20, and so that's 6. That'd have to be 14. There's a quicker way to do it. 10 is halfway in between.
6
From 6 to 10 is
8.
4. So from 10 to 14 is 4.
Oh, that's crazy.
All you got to do is this goes up 4, so it's got to go up 4 more. Okay, that's the quicker way to do it.
From 6 to 14.
So if this was 30 and this was 20, what would the top piece have to be? 10. Because these are 10 apart, so these got to be 10 apart. So here's another way to tell if a trapezoid is isosceles, just like to tell if something is a square. If the diagonals measure the same length, then it would be an isosceles triangle. So if this diagonal equals this diagonal, it would be isosceles. Now, most of these problems are simple. Here we have these are little triangles there, so that means they're parallel, so it's a trapezoid. Since this equals that, that means it's isosceles. So to find this angle, what would this one have to be? If that's 110?
90, 80, 70.
70, because they gotta add up to 180. And since it's isosceles, what would this be? 70, because the base angles are the same, and this would be 110. Okay? To show that something is a trapezoid, all you gotta do is show that there's one set of parallel lines. So in this picture, you can tell this line is not parallel to that. So you just gotta check, is this parallel to that? So in order to check if lines are parallel, you gotta find their slopes. So this one goes up 2 and over 4. So just check here, go up 2 and over 4, and I do end up back on the line, which means they have the same slope, which means they're parallel. So if they asked you to say why, you would say both slopes are 2/4. Or you can simplify to 1/2, up 1 over 2. So again, since it's isosceles, most of the stuff we do is gonna be isosceles. If this is 35, what would this angle be? 35. And what would these two each be? 145, because they gotta add up to 180. So they would both be 145. Okay, for a kite, it's a quadrilateral, so they gotta add up to 360. They're asking for what are these two angles? Well, what do you know about these two angles in a kite? They're equal. So if you just subtract these off of 360,
35.
yep, because it's 4 sides, quadrilaterals always add up to 4 for 360. So there's 250 degrees left after I subtract these off, and then divide by 2, they'd each be 125. Okay, here it's an odd looking kite, but it is a kite because these two sides are equal and these two. So you do the same thing. You just subtract these off of 360 and divide by 2 and you'd get those two. So the one example they didn't have in here that's on your assignment is like this. So remember to use the Pythagorean theorem to find the outsides.
Which is the square root of?
Yep. The side squared plus the side squared and then square root. So I'll put that up on the board just to show you which ones they are, but it's
That's not coffee. Hey.
Wrecked it.
okay. So the first one's simple. Find the missing angle measures. Now, you don't need to list since they're isosceles. Well, I guess you do got to find the 3 missing. Here you only got to find 2 missing, and here you got to find the 3 missing. Okay? Remember the mid segments how to do them? The mid segment is just the average of these two. 9 plus 7 is 16, divided by 2 is 8. And then here are the ones where you got to find the sides by using the Pythagorean theorem. I guess it does say here to round to the nearest hundredth. So 2 decimal places is what they want.